Well, folks, thanks for tuning in as we draw near to the end of the week here on Friday to Stockwell Day-to-Day News. Appreciate the ongoing and increasing support, good feedback I'm getting. And one of the things people are telling me is that it saves them a lot of time if they catch my podcast here with the insights behind it that they don't get on mainstream media. Gives them a chance. And also the way we cover things quickly, but trying to hit the key items, the news that matters at home and around the world. It's saving them a ton of time so they can get back to doing things like doom scrolling on TikTok. So thanks for tuning in. Look, huge stories today, and just put on the seatbelt. But one of the first ones up, we're seeing a remarkable, this is incredible, announcements by the American Medical Association, the American Society for Psychiatric or Pediatric Services, the American Society related to dealing with psychiatric issues, some of the hugest medical science societies really in the world, all this week announcing and saying that evidence is clear that people under 19 should not be subjected to the so-called gender affirming, I'm not sure what that means, but the so-called gender affirming procedures which can alternate a person, for life. We're talking about psychiatric drugs, we're talking about chemical procedures, and of course the surgical procedures which alter kids who've been counseled that in fact they might not be the gender that they were born, and so they get switched, they so-called switched genders. And there is enough mounting evidence now, it's overwhelming, as many of us have said it was for a long time anyway, that this is the risks involved should not be followed by those who are under 19 years old. That also goes with, we reported on this last week and mainstream media wasn't even touching it, and now it's all out there. Following, of course, the landmark case of the 16-year-old who had her under counsel, even though she didn't want it, even though her mother protested at first, had her breasts removed because counselors told her she was probably a different gender. So to me, this is just remarkable. And those of you in schools and those of you who are teachers and people in faith ministries, particularly pastors who are always worried about saying anything about this, even though it was so biologically obvious that you cannot change those XXXY chromosomes that we're all born with, depending if we're male or female. And pastors and other counselors afraid to even suggest to young people that they shouldn't go ahead with this now have huge evidence backing. So that's big. And even though mainstream media is reluctantly covering it, they're starting to more and more. And we were ahead of the curve on that story, as our regular listeners know. So talking about Olympic-sized stories, the Olympics started today, realize it or not, the Milan Cortina Olympics, the Winter Olympics. Some people are saying, what's with the Milan Cortina? What's Cortina mean? Well, actually, it's just the fact that it's mainly taking place in two cities in Italy, one in Milan, and obviously one in the area of Cortina, which I think goes back in 1956. They actually hosted an Olympics. These two cities are about 100 miles apart, about 160 kilometers apart. And this particular Olympics is being known for how spread around it is to so many different facilities. We'll see if that's going to work or not. Now, we've had cases of Olympics where they take places in different parts of the country, but this one, they are really spread around. And they're saying that they're doing that, first of all, for cost reasons, so that they don't have to be building multi-billion-dollar complexes, the type that, for instance, the city of Athens is still paying for its Olympics. That was back in 2004. The Olympics almost bankrupted. Some people say it did actually bankrupt the country of Greece because of all the costs involved. So we're watching that with interest. One facility that is new, and that's the hockey facility. There have been some questions about that. It was tested in January. They had some hockey tournaments there. The ice got very soft. The ice was snowy. There was a huge hole all of a sudden developed in front of the goalie's net. which I can tell you, Pat, in the past as a goalie, I wouldn't have minded having a hole in front of the net to stop some of those fast-moving forwards from moving in. So people are kind of keeping an eye on that. They hope that it holds up. Just a couple of points to, a little bit of trivia as you're watching the Olympics, if that's what you're doing. In terms of Winter Olympics, since it began, Norway still holds the title, holds the record for most medals won so far. They're way ahead. And Norway, a little country of 5 million people, whereas Canada, with about 38 million, Canada's in fifth place in terms of medals. So Norway still the reigning champ in terms of overall medal score. A couple of people you might want to be watching. Lindsey Vonn, people who follow Olympics and Winter Olympics will know, she is the oldest in history skier. She's an alpine skiing event is hers, and she'll be competing. Had an unfortunate accident just last week. They feel that she may have torn her ACL and messed up her knee, but it seems to be an era for old people. Look what just happened in a Grand Slam of tennis down in Australia. So for all us old folks, great to see these other athletes keeping up to it. In fact, in many cases, leading the young ones. We'll see what happens there in Canada. William Danjanu, keep an eye on him, one of the speedster skaters there. An entrant from China, and actually she's well known, Eileen Gu. She's a freestyle skier, and all eyes are going to be on her, along with, of course, the man they call the God Quad, or the God of Quad. Ilya Milinin is going to be, people will be hanging on the edges of their seats to see if he's going to be performing that quadruple that he has made so famous. Let's see how he does with that. In terms of billions of dollars being spent in Canada, the Prime Minister just announced they're calling it the new EV, electric vehicle mandate. Some are calling it ZEV or ZEV, ZEVs, depending on where you live. And the multi-billion-dollar announcement to really ramp up the EV market. Now, one of the things that businesses are saying in Canada is they're glad. At first blush, it seems that they've backed off, the government has backed off on the EV mandate in terms of a certain percentage of all vehicles made. By 2033, there had to be a certain percentage. The government of Canada is just doing the practical thing. They're seeing, not just in Canada and the US, but around the world, the demand for electric vehicles is tapering off, if not dropping. It's kind of, some people are speculating that it has peaked. A lot of that has to do with the fact that refined oil and gas is much less impactful on the environment, as some people would say, if it ever was. And so people are feeling better about buying their newer vehicles, if they are diesel or if they are gas, or in fact natural gas or hydrogen, and for a number of reasons. Also so many more environmental studies coming out suggesting that in fact the world is not coming to an end in some great fireball of pollution, that things are, we always have to keep an eye on pollution factors, but things aren't quite as disastrous as they thought they would be. And then the fact that Canada's dealing, as anybody knows, with a fairly cold climate, and a significant number of EV owners reporting in Canada that the amount of time to recharge takes longer, the amount of energy that's being used, especially in cold weather, and then the chargers, thousands and thousands that are required across the country, the constant need to be fixing those, to be upgrading them, and the costs that are involved with that. So definitely some of the bloom coming off of the proverbial rose there on the EV mandates, and people are going to be watching to see if countries still invest billions and billions, as Canada is doing, into vehicles that fewer and fewer people actually want. Well, there's a term out there in media and out there in the cyber world when it talks about disasters or potential disasters in the investment community, depending where it is. And this one is called the psychopolypse. You take the word apocalypse and stick SAA in front of it. You've got psychopolypse, if I'm saying that right. And the SAA, that stands for software as a service. So what they're saying is the software as a service community, which is a giant multi-billion, multi-trillion dollar community, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people working it, really being pressured by some of the phenomenal breakthroughs that are happening in AI, which is reducing massive numbers of people that used to be required to do research, to do analysis, to do checking of systems right across the world. Just today, they figured the loss in those companies about a $285 billion loss in terms of valuation just today. And one of the reasons for that is Anthropic has come up with announced, and it's to do with their Claude site or platform, just the amazing, incredibly fast and wide-sweeping abilities that AI is giving to people who are doing research, who are doing very in-depth analysis, scientific engineering and otherwise, and less people being needed in some of those industries. And so we're seeing that across the world and are really hitting the markets today. And it's not just companies, places like the London Stock Exchange, places like Thomson Reuters, which is a giant media company, just no longer requiring as many people, and thousands being laid off. Now, any time in history since the Industrial Revolution that there's been new and breakthrough innovative technology, there's always been the cry saying this is going to mean millions of people are never going to work again. Somehow, as human beings, it recovers, and more people are working now than ever before. And the innovators and entrepreneurs are thinking this will be a shift in what people are doing, but it's a shift based on certain technologies. You know, when we move to motor cars away from buggies and horses, everybody said that's going to be it. You know, all kinds of people are going to be out of work forever. Everything from people who make buggy whips and people who make saddles for horses, and then there's of course all the people in all the cities in those days with their horses just walking behind and cleaning up poop all day long. People shift. Other opportunities open up. So is it something to be concerned about? Of course. Is it something that history shows the human beings recover and continue to actually thrive? Yes, I think that's what's going to happen. But it's a bit of an unnerving time for people. And right along with that, it's been very interesting to see giant response, high-level angle response. Jeff Bezos' newspaper, The Washington Post, has announced, partly because of all these breakthroughs, a layoff of about 300 people. And of course, journalists from around the world, they're forgetting about, they're not so much attention on people in the trades, on hardworking people who get up every day, pull their boots and their shoes on and go to work in all kinds of areas where it's hard work and they're getting laid off. But it's just been like a national, international outcry that journalists are getting laid off. So it's kind of amusing to watch that. I mean, look, my heart goes out to anybody who's getting laid off and they have to look at switching up professions. But watching the journalists being more concerned about journalists than any other of the thousands of people being laid off around the world is kind of interesting. So we will keep an eye on that and see where it goes. Not sure if you've ever heard of the, as they call it, the Russian oligarch, multi-billionaire, used to be anyway, from Russia, obviously, and his name's Igor Makarov. Igor was among many of the oligarchs, so-called the hugely wealthy business people from Russia, who many countries, quite right, have said they freeze their assets in their countries because of the Russia-Ukraine war. They take away their licenses in various countries. They make it impossible for them to make money, and that is justified. If you're making money in a country like Russia, if you're making money off of the war effort, then that should be looked at, and I can understand other companies barring those individuals. But Igor Makarov is making the case that this was unfairly done. He's saying that he was one of the first ones out there who denounced Putin, who denounced the war in Ukraine. He actually moved. He delisted himself. He took away his own Russian citizenship. He supports huge financial supports to Ukraine and Ukrainians, and he's saying Canada is still labeling him as one of the bad guys, and he's not. He says, look at countries like New Zealand, look at countries like Australia, which delisted him at first and have now put him back. So Canada's still saying no. Something they may want to think about, first of all, is it is necessary and important to cut people off who are involved, and especially with the on the Russian-Ukraine situation. But if Canada's not going to at least take some consideration, check out what this guy's saying. Did he really, oppose Ukraine or oppose Putin from the start and do all these things? Because if you don't give some consideration to giving somebody back their ability to invest and to create wealth again, you could discourage people from wanting to step up and denounce Putin and denounce the war, because they're going to think, if I'm not going to benefit, if I'm still going to get outlawed and banned, then what's the use of me? I may as well stick with what I was doing. So anyway, as I've done before, I like to be the spokesperson for all those voiceless, poor billionaires out there that nobody likes. And interesting, we'll watch and see how that case goes. In Toronto, this has gone around the world. A huge scandal breaking out in the police force there. Dozens and dozens of police officers under investigation, some already being arrested. It all started with something that was internally called Project South, and that was to do with, there was an investigation going on with a murder, actually, and who might be accomplices and accessories to that murder. And in the course of that investigation, they found out that untold numbers of police officers in the Toronto police community had been selling information, had been going into their own very secure and protected information sectors where people's names quite rightly, until charged, are kept private. So police officers going into those sites, selling some of the information, giving information to the bad guys who are going after other bad guys, and even coming to sale of illegal products, maybe illegal sale of drugs. Just a giant scandal has broken out. I feel badly for all the men and women in uniform who would never be involved with this, but apparently it's looking like a huge number of the officers in the Toronto Police Service are implicated. I hope they quickly get to the bottom of this. If there are people guilty of that they get dealt with and move on, because it definitely is a real taint on all of the thousands and thousands of police officers who are out there on the front line doing the right thing. Well, talking about files, the Epstein files continue to rage in media, and the latest dump drop of files, I don't know how many more there are, some 3 million files there, or 3 million pages, whatever it might be. Just unbelievable the amount of information that was accumulated on and with this guy Epstein in the years that he was operating. And now it's not so much at the place where it's new sexual scandals that are breaking forth. We've seen which ones of those seem to be holding. Clearly, any chance that the Democrats thought they would have of catching Donald Trump in one of these situations, just not there. He just didn't do it, though he was, apparently he knew Epstein way back. And so giving up on Trump, they're going after others, and they're finding there's quite a few, if not the majority of people, have some kind of implication, are actually Democrats anyway, and not Republicans. But just interesting, and the stuff that's coming up, everything from recipes about how to make flax seed muffins. Yes, that was in the Epstein files. To a little more serious and embarrassing stuff. Deepak Chopra, of course, is known to be a religious guru in the United States, brings in millions and millions of dollars a year on his meditative type religion. And they say they've got an email from him. Apparently, he's saying to Jeffrey that God is just a construct, but girls are a reality. So awkward things coming up, very awkward things coming up related to Bill Gates. And here's the problem now that's emerging with that. It's not only that situation, but people are now making fake Epstein files and releasing that, to implicate their adversaries, either politically or in business. So It gives some of the reason of why police don't release files and why intelligence agencies don't release files if it's not related to somebody being convicted of a crime, because when investigation is done, it's very sweeping. Everybody gets looked at, and anybody that even gets glanced at, their name goes in. So this is going to continue to have ramifications. But one thing that people need to be thinking about is emails that people sent that they never thought ever would be made public, because of course we have that guarantee. And now we see in certain situations that in fact the emails you're sending, the texts you're sending, the sites you're on may in fact not be as protected as we thought. Something you may want to keep in mind. In Iran, the horrific situation continues. They feel now, on corroborated sources, could be up to 36,000 young people that have been mowed down. 36,000, I mean, let's just take a breath, breathe that number in for a minute. That many young people mowed down, killed, hanged by cranes. This is a terrible situation. Pressure continues to mount on for that the Ayatollah, the Islamist extremist, to leave along with his people, but it appears that he's staying now, and we'll see how it all works out. And again, other than the supporters of Iran itself, there's just nowhere on the streets anywhere in the world that you see people protesting and waving their signs and placards to protest the Iranian Islamist government on these 36,000. So all those people who, get out there and protest, and they're protesting ICE, and they're protesting Israel, and they're protesting the environment, where are they when it comes to saying a word of support for now up to 36,000 young people possibly being mowed down? It's a sad situation. Well, the Super Bowl is coming up. I'm sure many of you will be tuning into it. And of course, Super Bowl ads always grab the attention. They say, you're going to want to see the one with George Clooney in it. Well, maybe, I don't know. Some of these ads are going to be political, so that's going to be interesting to watch. And what advertisers are doing, what people are doing, is they're taking two people of extreme different positions philosophically, putting them in the same ad. Some people say, well, why are they doing that? It's like the NFL bringing in Bad Bunny, who is a serious radical leftist thinker, somebody who in my mind shouldn't even be called a thinker, but bringing him in to do the halftime show. So then they bring in somebody who's more on the conservative side to sing one of the songs, maybe sing the anthem. And it all is coming down, it appears, to money. This way, you're bringing two huge communities on the scene. Lots of clicks going on there. Apparently, Eli Manning is in an ad, and I'll make it a surprise for you. You'll have to watch to see who he's teamed up with in the same ad. But let's just say they're not exactly on the same page philosophically. But the brilliance of the marketing there is you bring in two huge sectors of support. If you've got two people in an ad who are against, or at least their positions are diametrically opposed, and they would tend to go at each other, you're going to get twice the audience. So just what you would call, I guess, entrepreneurial thinking going on there. Well, a new Archbishop of Canterbury in the UK has been sworn in, Sarah Mullally, and not without controversy. It's tough to go without controversy in the religious world today, but her blessing and even advocating on behalf of the LGBT community, same-sex marriage. The church traditionally has taken the approach that God loves everybody and everybody has the right to make their own decisions, but that the Bible is quite clear about these things. And so you love and respect the people, but you don't necessarily have to agree with what they're doing. Sarah appears, the new Archbishop, Sarah Mullally, appears to be condoning and giving sanction to that. So that's causing a fair bit of reaction, definitely, in the Anglican Church. Donald Trump today at the National Prayer Breakfast in Washington, talking about getting people's attention on the issue of faith and prayer. He has declared that they're bringing in provisions to restore, for those who want it, prayer in public schools. That, of course, was abandoned decades ago because somebody complained. And that's going to be changing. And he's also saying that in May, they're going to be proclaiming a national day of return to God, or reconciliation to God. You know, history shows, whatever people think or believe, whatever their belief is, countries tend to thrive and prosper that embrace biblical principles. Not 100%, no country's going to do it, but they thrive and prosper even for the poor more than countries that don't try to grasp and reflect biblical principles. So we'll see if Donald Trump is right. We'll see if the financial fortunes of the U.S. continue to move up after he's made this declaration. Folks, thanks for being with us. Catch you tomorrow.